so much, everybody, for coming. Fiona, published author.
Yeah.
How does it feel to have the book in your hands?
Very exciting.
Put the book in your hands.
Very exciting. And the thing is that I do this every time I've been picking up, I've been going, oh. Excited, very, very proud, and slightly emotional. Because those of you who know about this, and obviously the personal dedication, this all comes from my late husband, Duncan. He came up with the word trust as the main quality for leaders, and to actually have this is just like, yes.
Amazing. Right, so before we get into detail on the book, tell us what we need to know about you. Give us your background, your story. And I have read the introduction. I've read the whole book, and I know there's some stories in there.
There's lots of stories in there.
So yeah, tell us what we need to know.
I am a leadership trainer. I'm a coach. I'm also an expert in something called neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. And NLP is the methodology of how we create behaviour. I've been working probably in the area of language, mindset and behaviour for over 35 years. So this book has come from my experience of working in corporates, of coaching people, and I was in sales for 25 years. I worked for Xerox, I worked for Yellow Pages. I was the first employee for Xerox out in the Middle East. So I've got international experience, but what's also been interesting is understanding that no matter where you work in the world, you're working with people. Sometimes people forget that you're working with people, and as people, there's certain things we all need, and definitely this turned out it was trust. Yeah, and that was the underpinning of everything. So this is me pulling together 35 to 40 years of experience, hands-on experience, tough experience in a lot of cases, of being very badly managed, and also me being a very bad manager. When I first started managing, I thought boss was a verb. So you had to boss everyone. Because I was just modelling what I thought was the right thing to do. That's what we do, we copy what we see. And then I started to get interested in how the mind fitted with behaviour. So I trained as a clinical hypnotherapist. That was the first area that I moved into, clinical hypnotherapy. And then from there, went on to train with NLP to practitioner, master practitioner, trainer level.
So I'm going to read this out, and I've written it down. I'm going to read it. Didn't try and memorise it because I want to get this perfect. Okay. So trust and empathy are the cornerstones of modern leadership. In fact, they're the cornerstones of modern life. As the pace of technological change accelerates and the pressure of our world continues to increase, the ability to connect, communicate, and lead with emotional intelligence has become the skill set of our times. A strategic imperative and a social superpower in equal measure. So these are the words of Mimi Nicklin, who wrote the foreword to your book.
Yes.
Tell us about Mimi and why it was important that she wrote it.
Mimi and I have known each other for many years. The top person in the whole of Asia for empathy. Her message is all about empathy and how people have to be able to be empathetic of each other. And she's doing the most incredible work. Every time she comes on anywhere, she's somewhere else in the world. She's out there getting the message out of how it's so important. We're diverging at this point of time. There's lots of technology, there's lots of the fake news, there's all sorts of things happening. And we're actually at a stage now where human relationships, understanding each other, being empathetic, and then obviously this leads on to trust. So when I spoke to Mimi and asked her would she do the foreword, she was delighted, because when she realised the book was all about trust, she said this fits so well about the message that we can really start getting out there. So thank you, Mimi, for doing that.
So obviously in the foreword, the first word is trust,
yes.
And the book Working with Trust. You touched on this just at the start, but tell us a bit more about trust and where it came from.
Okay, I lost my husband Duncan last year, and Duncan was a brilliant people leader. He was a CEO, he was a general manager, and he worked all over the world. And a few months before he passed, Duncan and we were together 26 years, and he was my absolute champion and my absolute nemesis at the same time. Everything I said he would challenge, and so what? And what's that got? And I loved it. I loved that challenge because it made me think about what I was talking about. So I said to him, I said, Duncan, I'm curious. I've got a feeling I'd like to write a book. I'm feeling it's getting time to write a book. What do you think is the most important quality in a leader? And he didn't even take a breath. He went, trust. I thought it was going to be fun because his top value was always work has to be fun. But he said, trust. And I said, so what is it about trust? I said, if you don't trust people, how can you delegate to people? How can people work for you if they don't trust you? How can you make decisions if you don't trust yourself? So that became our last champagne night. We didn't know it was going to be last champagne night at the time. We used to do these little, shall we say, creative brainstorming sessions. I'm allowed to say. And I always got my pen and my piece of paper. Started off, the name was the Trust Circle. Don't know where that came, but that jumped in my head. The name of the book turned to Working with Trust. There are two frameworks, the Trust Framework and the Circle Framework. So that out of that night, that's where the whole book was born.
So once Duncan had passed,
Yes.
how did the journey of writing your book begin?
Suzanne. I come from Stewarton. Suzanne, I'd been giving a talk at our local pub restaurant, and they set up a local networking group. And we got talking, and Suzanne invited me to her creative writing. I said to Suzanne, I've actually got a book. I had written this book in about 6 weeks. That's what I threw myself into after I lost my book. So she said, okay, that's great. So we arranged to have a session so that Suzanne can have a look at my book. And she very kindly said, oh, you've written, and I said my final draft. Because I'd written about 20 drafts. That was my final draft. And she said, you don't mind me saying this?
No, I
You've written a very good workbook. Now, I've been writing workbooks. I'm a corporate training facilitator. I can write a workbook standing in my head, it just comes straight out. I know what flow's all about. I know how to put things in order. Yeah. And she said, well, do you want to publish a workbook or do you want to publish a really good professional business book? And I said, well, I'd like to produce a really professional business book. And that's where we ended up with the writing club. Suzanne was my book coach. I came along to the writing group. But having this process, it opened up a whole new area to me. I like to know about things. I'm curious and I like to learn. And it was really fascinating learning the whole process of writing and publishing a book. There's so much to it that I hadn't even taken into consideration. Suzanne made me get all my business books out and look at the content section.
It's totally eye-opening, isn't it? How judgy you become.
Just the context section. So you open up, you're already making up your mind about the book. I hadn't even thought of that.
No.
And it was all that, and it was so lovely to put my hand in so many experts throughout even the setting out the book, the publishing. Heather's been brilliant. She also she helped me do the whole planning of how this book launch was going to happen. And not only here, but what goes on after that. So there was so much to learn with that, but it's a process. And it's a process that I'm thoroughly enjoying doing.
Yeah. And it's actually, Suzanne said before, she said, Heather, everybody that's helped you through this is part of the Curious Will Collective.
Yeah.
So the Curious Will Collective is effectively a publishing house that is being created at the moment, and within that in Scotland we have all the people that we need for MD writing a book to get it from start to finish. The whole ethos around that is trust as well.
Yeah. Yes. And you have to be able to trust people. When you're writing, what I was encouraged to do, Suzanne, was put stories in. So there's stories about Duncan. There's stories about when Duncan had a really tough time, and his integrity made him make a very, very tough decision to say he was stepping away from this job. We'd given up everything. So that's in the book. Plus, there's a lot of my stories. And it was so lovely being able to, all the stories that would start to come up.
So let's talk about the book.
Yeah.
What is the book all about?
The book is a guide for leaders and coaches to help them build and sustain trust within their teams or trust within the people they're working with. Because we're at the start of a brand new world that's unfolding in front of us. Leaders within the next 2 to 3 years are going to be managing people and AI agents. The way AI is going, people have to be able to communicate with machines verbally, but also trust people. So the human relationship in business is going to be stronger than ever before. So as humans, we have to be able to identify what is real and what is not real. What do we trust and what do we not trust? And when, I don't know who here has worked in an environment, but in fact, let's just ask you, who's worked in an environment where you feel trusted and you trust who's there? How cool does that feel? Who's worked in an opposite environment? Lots of you watching, all the hands in the room. And how does that feel when you're not trusted? What happens is everyone's guard goes up. People don't talk about everything. Everyone starts gossiping about each other and it becomes toxic and things don't get done. And for people to be able to lead happy, successful lives, somehow you have to put over to trust. So when I did a lot of research about this, I realised there are loads of books out there that mention trust. There's loads of books out there that mention the elements of my frameworks. But there's hardly anything out there that shows you the behaviour to do that. So that's where I've really gone, because with NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, this is all about the methodology of how we create behaviour. So the book is full of exercises and tips and techniques of how you get someone to respect you. Because we can't just go, you have to respect me. You can't build trust with someone if you're late all the time. If you keep saying you're going to do something, then don't do it. That's just breaking trust. So I've broken down all the different behaviours that create trust and the behaviours that sustain trust. So that's the main part of the book. Another thing that I talk about in the book is emotional intelligence and meta skills. We're getting into meta skills that are taught in Scottish primary schools. 9-year-olds are learning about collaboration, they're learning about empathy, they're learning about understanding people, integrity. This has actually been taught in schools.
So, going back to the book. So in the book, there's some key messages that come through for me. Leadership, obviously. Yeah. Trust stands out right the way through. Emotional intelligence, NLP, but AI is the one that I find really interesting. And it goes back to what Suzanne makes us do and tell stories in a nice way. You got books out of us, Suzanne. You got books out of us. And so I want to talk a little bit about AI and trust. And you have touched on this already, and that's storytelling. How important is trust in AI?
Well, you have to trust AI. It's a data tool. It's a very smart data tool because it learns. So I've been using AI in all sorts of ways for the last couple of years. And I know those of us who are doing that, we're in the forefront of this. This isn't going to go away. It's like having we were talking about this earlier, it's like having your secretary, your PA, your butler, your concierge, all these different words. It's a way that you can get lots of information, but AI has to learn from people. And it's being able to talk about trusting your own voice. Because when you trust your own voice, when you share your own stories, and that can be scary, because it feels vulnerable. And the minute you share something, there's going to be people say, that's a load of rubbish. So and especially in Scotland here, who does she think she is? we know that one. And that's slightly different to other cultures, where, wow, go for it, yeah, other cultures will encourage you. We in Scotland tend to come from a bit, especially west coast of Scotland, Glasgow, comes from a certain culture that can push you down. But Professor Brené Brown, she's absolutely proven the minute you show vulnerability, the minute you show honesty, the minute you're authentic, an AI tool cannot replicate your stories.
No.
It can take your stories and make them sound fabulous. But it needs the tools, first of all. It's your own experience. And I really think that what you're saying, there's so much out there, and it almost, when it's all AI produced, it's bland.
Mm-hmm.
It's very good, but it's bland.
Yep.
When someone's voice is behind it, and Suzanne, thanks, because you really helped me understand this as well. When someone's voice is behind that, it really stands out. We feel the difference.
So in the book, you have 2 frameworks and 2 models. So your framework's trust and circle,
Yes.
and your model raft and splatter.
Yes.
If I said them right, raft and splatter.
Yeah.
Perfect. Let's talk about trust. That's going to be the theme today. So tell us what the trust is. So first of all, trust stands for something, doesn't it?
Yeah. Trust stands for, the T of the trust is transparency and truthfulness. When you are transparent and truthful, people will trust you. Now, if we talk about where we are, literally, we're in Glasgow. A couple of weeks ago, big major fire in Glasgow, the central station, the main central station in Glasgow closed down. Now, being transparent and truthful, sometimes people think they've got to tell your deepest, darkest secrets. No. We were able to deal with one of the main transport supplies cut off in Glasgow because there was regular bulletins being transparent. This is happening, there's demolition happening, there's this, we're hoping to get open by here. Oh, we're not quite going to do it, we're going to do it then. So, and if you think, go back to COVID, we did exactly the same thing in COVID. Human beings don't need all the total perfect information. They just need signposted in what's going now. So for a manager to be able to turn around, or a leader to be able to turn around and say, I haven't got a clue how we're going to deal with this, but I know we can do it. Straight away, on a neurological level, your team are connecting with you because you're not trying to kid them on and try to pretend you know what you're doing. So it's the truthfulness and transparency first. And then the next one is respect. The R is respect. And if you want someone to respect you, you've got to respect other people. It's as simple as that. We model what we get back in this world. And the number of people, yeah, but they just have to respect me. And I'll say, but you're respecting everyone else. It doesn't work that way. Next one, they use understanding. So it's understanding others. Every single person creates their own edited version of the world. No 2 people see the same situation in the same way. And when you actually really understand that, it becomes fascinating. You are all seeing different things. So it's being able to step in and understand people. The S is support. Now, support in a business scenario is you support someone to make decisions. You support someone to think. It's coaching. It's a coaching culture, and it's allowing people to come up with their own solutions and asking the type of questions that you would ask. So rather than giving people answers and solving their problems, you're saying things, so what would you do? What needs to happen to resolve that? So we're actually giving, in each of these elements of the framework, I'm giving lots of behaviour that you can do for that. And the last one is timeliness. And I actually mentioned it before. The quickest way to break trust is say you're going to do something and not do it, or do it late. So when you do things, so that it's actually keeping yourself responsible to say what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. So that's the trust framework.
Fab. Why should we be reading your book?
If you're in a situation that you're leading people, it's not a book just to read, it's a reference book to go back and use and to be able to say, right, what's missing? So for example, so maybe respect is missing. So what can I do to build respect in my team? What can I do to show I'm respecting the people that are working with me? So it's for anyone who wants to learn in business. Well, it's not just for business because we know this is human behaviour, but it's for people who want to learn to have more effective relationships and the type of relationships that really last. And what I mean by that, who knows people that they've worked with that were really fabulous and maybe they worked with them years ago and you still remember that person? Maya Angelou, people won't remember what you say, they won't remember what you do, they'll always remember how you make them feel. So it's about people who are wanting to make a difference and wanted to make a serious difference in the way that they're working with the people that we're leading. And also for coaches, to get even better results with their coaches.
How do you think Duncan would feel now seeing you with your book today?
Very proud.
Yeah. I want to finish off with these lines, and these are the last 5 lines of the book. Pause, listen, ask, trust. Lead in a way that feels true to you. When you do, people will follow not because they have to, but because they want to. And that's when real work and the real joy of leadership begins. So thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.